Hello there! Welcome back to another episode of Seaport Vault. My name is Sarah and I'm the archivist here at the Independent Seaport Museum. Today is part 2 of our special two-part series on Philadelphians on vacation, and we are talking about travel for the masses, which has almost always meant one thing, the Jersey Shore. Let's get started. Alright, so as we discussed in the last episode, travel for leisure was generally reserved for people of higher socioeconomic classes. Now, for the working classes, there was generally a lack of discretionary funds and then also a lack of time and the resources to travel, because if you work, you have to make money, and if you take days off, you can't make money, so it just never really pans out. So that was definitely a driving force in the working classes not taking vacations. Now, in comes the Jersey Shore as a destination. It was originally conceived as, of course, a playground for the wealthy to take their nice little summer vacations away from the disgusting city air, but that quickly evolved to include people of all demographics. Now, the Jersey Shore is probably about 2 hours away by train. It's maybe an hour away by car, so it's really a very close place. And if we remember back to the last episode, travel generally took a big chunk of your vacation time. So having that shortened time to get to the destination really helped make it accessible. And it was also pretty accessible monetarily wise too. The Jersey Shore was also relatively cheap, especially compared to other options of the day. And it was also marketed as the place to be, especially for younger dating age folks. So with all that in mind, let's investigate how they would have gotten to the Jersey Shore. So how did people get from Philadelphia to the New Jersey Shore in the early 20th century? Well, the initial answer to that would be by excursion boat. And you can see an example behind me right here. So what exactly is an excursion boat? Now, we tend to think of excursion boats with today's standards as being maybe something to take you around an inlet for a little bit, or maybe even a whale watching tour. But in the early part of the 20th century, this had a slightly different definition. Now, you saw that it's a pretty massive boat, a side-wheel steam boat. Now, they would be filled with about 3,500 passengers in the case of our Republic. And it would take you for a few hours all the way from Philadelphia down to Cape May. So it's really just an excursion that's part of your vacation that is really wrapped into your transportation. The steamship Republic was $1 for a round trip from Philadelphia to Cape May. So as we can see here, one ticket was used for the round trip. So this first half would be detached when you boarded the boat in Philadelphia, and then you would retain this pass for the rest of your trip and then turn it in upon your return to the ship after your day in Cape May. The Republic was advertised as a method for you to take a day off and enjoy it by the sea. So they were really encouraging working class people to take a day off of work, board the Republic, and then go down to the shore. They were also really pushing that low cost of $1. So again, that's making travel affordable and accessible to the working classes. The Republic would leave Race Street Wharf every morning at 7:30 in the morning, so that would be a very early start to your day, and then you would return to the city of Philadelphia at nightfall. So you have the entire day, and the boat is part of your little mini vacation. So how did travel really become a reality for the working classes? Well, through railroads. Both Pennsylvania Railroad Company and Reading Company had rail lines that would run from Camden to various shore points, including Wildwood, Cape May, and Atlantic City. The line to Atlantic City was really one of the most notable ones, and it was known as the Atlantic City Line. Now, by 1933, Pennsylvania and Reading companies had merged to become the Pennsylvania Reading Seashore Lines, which is a mouthful, but it really was the connector to get Philadelphians from the city out to the shore. And you hear me saying that we went from Camden to the shore, and that is because at this point we really didn't have any train bridges that went across the Delaware River. So you would take a ferry from Market Street in Philadelphia over to Camden, and from Camden you would board your train and take your trip down the shore. This is a map of southern New Jersey, and it shows at the top where Philadelphia is, and then the lower half of New Jersey. And it dates to the early 1900s, showing all of the different rail lines and the good roads of southern New Jersey. All right, so starting up here at Camden, we've already taken the ferry across the river. We would board the train and then follow it all the way down here, passing through the pine barrens and all of the farmland of southern New Jersey, all the way down to Atlantic City. The fare for the railroad was relatively inexpensive, and it was also a pretty quick trip down the shore. It would take probably about 2 hours to get from Philadelphia to Atlantic City, which, all things considered, especially with the traffic of today, that is pretty quick. So with that, let's take a trip down the shore, shall we? Atlantic City is definitely one of the most iconic Jersey shore points, and it's also one that was built around the railroads. So of course, in its original form, it was marketed as a place for the wealthy to spend their summers, but that very, very quickly evolved to include all different demographics. So it was really accessible to almost everybody, regardless of your socioeconomic status, because it was easy to make a day trip out of it, and it was also something that could be done on a budget. Atlantic City was really a melting pot of all different types of people kind of coexisting in the same place, having a shared experience during the summers. If you weren't just taking a day trip to Atlantic City, hotels were an option. So along the Atlantic City boardwalk, you had these massive resort-style hotels like the Marlborough Blenheim, but you also had smaller boarding houses which offered more affordable rates. So if you were staying there for an extended period of time, it really didn't put that much of a dent in your pocket if you were saving up and you were able to spend a few days down at the shore. Now, speaking of the boardwalk, that was really where that melting pot image really comes to life. On the boardwalk, people would dress up in their Sunday best, in their finery, and just walk up and down the boardwalk, experiencing all of the amusements, such as the diving horse, saltwater taffy, all of the different games and amusement rides. And it was really this whole experience, again, a very shared experience that people would remember for the rest of their lives and also return to every summer following. In addition to the boardwalk, there was also naturally the beach. And people would again wear their nice clothes and walk around on the beach, and they would also wear bathing suits, but not really our bathing suits like today. They were made out of wool, and they would swim in the ocean as well. Aside from the beach and boardwalk, there were other area attractions that were an option to explore as well, including Lucy the Elephant, which I actually remember exploring as a little girl as well. And with that, I'm really excited for this next part as we go to the vault to see some things from memory lane. All right, so here we are back in our favorite place, the Seaport Vault, to look at a few things that relate to Atlantic City. So just as with Dewey Mania, we have Atlantic City Mania, if you will. So when you were down the shore, you could get anything and everything to remember your trips by. And this is an example of a mug that you could have purchased at Atlantic City. And based on the markings of this piece, we believe it's from the 1950s. Another Atlantic City piece in our collection is a tea set, and it's child-sized, and this is the teapot from that little collection. There's also a creamer and a sugar container. This piece features the Absecon Lighthouse, which could have been viewed when you were down in Atlantic City, and the tea set was made in Germany. Another very popular item for people to bring home as souvenirs were plates. And this is a commemorative plate that somebody would have purchased in June 1903, commemorating an event. It depicts Atlantic City as it was, and then as it was in 1903, when it was a resort town. For day trips and recreation at the New Jersey shore, there were other options in addition to the boardwalk, such as fishing. Looks like we caught something.
Hey, Sarah. Do you know why fish sing off key? Because you can't tune a fish. You get that? You can't tune a fish.
Let's reel this in, shall we? Sorry about that. So of course, fishing is a huge activity at the Jersey Shore and still is. And at one point, there was something called the Fishermans Express. And that was a train that would leave at 6 a.m. sharp from the Market Street docks and then go from Philadelphia down to Wildwood. It would take about 2 hours to get down there. So again, a very, very quick trip. And it was a direct trip too. You get down to Wildwood at pretty much, give or take 10 o'clock, let's say. When you get off the train, you were let out directly at the docks, and you were given the opportunity to either just go out to the piers and fish all day, or you could rent a spot on a party boat. And I do not mean party boat as in party boat. It is essentially a group of people or a party going out and fishing kind of off the shoreline, if you will. The party boat captains were very familiar with the waterways there because they were local. And with that, they were able to take these fishermen for the day, if you will, out to the waterways where the fish were located. In some cases, you would be able to catch more than you would off the piers, but it was just the atmosphere of being down there, catching fish, and then bringing them home for the day. And it was about at 4:30 in the afternoon that you would have to board the train to go back to Philadelphia. And if you weren't there for that train boarding, I don't quite know what happened, but just be there at 4:30, okay? So trains are, of course, very tight spaces. And if we think of fishing poles like we have them today, they're just one long pole. And there are things called compact fishing poles, and this one is made out of bamboo. And as you can see, it is several parts of a fishing pole that you would be able to screw back together when you got to your destination. And it's on this convenient little holder. So everything you need for the fishing day is in one convenient little receptacle. All right, so that wraps it up for our two-part series on Philadelphians on vacation. And I hope you'll join us next time as we talk about periscope cameras. Thanks so much for joining us, and until next time, I'm on vacation.